Morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am fabulous. Gonna sink down a little bit so my cat holding the knife is not
Ah,
on the screen.
that is so funny.
Thank you.
I watched I was recharging my batteries yesterday. I just slept and
Good.
got my head back on straight. It was like everything I touched was going wrong. And I just said, I got to let go and let God. And I'm just going to take a day for me. So I did.
And you look gorgeous today.
Oh, yes. I did get a good night's sleep.
Good, 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 good. I love it.
But the reason was that part of what I did is I watched TV last night in bed, which I never do. And I watched Animal Control, and they had a story about they were called to get a crab that a lady had, the crab was attacking the lady before she could get it in the pot. And when they got there, the crab had a knife, and the crab stabbed the animal control guy.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
It's funny. I said it was lame, but my brain needed lame yesterday.
Yeah, sometimes it just does. You guys ready? All right. So this person, as a kid, was grossly overweight. He was very sickly, had severe asthma, and his nickname was Fat Freddy. And because of that, and the fact that even back then, and this person is older than I am, his parents were massively overprotective. And in my generation, and Kay and Kathy and Bree, even though she doesn't look like it, well, all of us actually, except for maybe Craig's a baby, but parents were not overprotective for the most part. We were like feral children. I mean, it was just get home before. Yeah, exactly. We were like, go play, go roam the streets in a strange pack of gang, like, ranged in all different sizes. And his parents weren't. They were massively overprotective. So he was bullied really, really bad all through school. And his parents just told him, like, just ignore them. Never ever show anything. Don't talk back. Don't show them that you're upset or anything. Just hide all your feelings and they will leave you alone. Well, that doesn't work. It didn't work then. It doesn't work now, right? It just doesn't work. So he grew up not knowing what to do with all this anger that he had inside of him and fear and everything else. It just kept it inside because he didn't know what to do with it. So eventually he turned to music and he turned to the piano. And he said, he goes, I could sit down and I could pour out all my anger and fear. And he said, it's no wonder I became a composer of music, which is not what he's known for, by the way, because I could just pour everything out. When he got a little older in high school, there was a guy named Jim Stumbaugh, and Jim Stumbaugh ended up in the hospital. This guy's on the football. I don't know if he's the captain or head, whatever, but he's definitely a football player in high school. And he ended up in the hospital. And so he would bring him his homework, and then he kind of tutored him. And Jim just was really, really appreciative because he didn't lose all this time while he was in the hospital. And he said, you know what? You're a good guy and I like you the way you are. And they just became friends for life. And Jim, that friendship started to give him confidence, so much so that he eventually became the class president and the school paper editor. So he started to shine after that. And he helped him he helped Jim with his schoolwork and to become better at that. And Jim really helped him to kind of make him feel accepted. Okay. He ended up going to Dartmouth. I'm not a college kid, so I can't pronounce anything. But he only went 1 year, so he was an Ivy League dropout. And then he went to Rollins. He wanted to go into music, so he went to Rollins and he graduated. They're probably going to butcher this one too. Magna cum laude. Is that how you say this? Thank you very much. All right. In his adult life, let's flip over to this one. He grew up in the dawn of television. Okay, so it helps peg his age a little bit. And he thought television was the most horrible thing. He actually called it, quote, perfectly horrible. He's like, this is the most horrible thing I've ever seen. He's like, it could be something really good with good production values and all kinds of good stuff, but it's not. It's just, puppets slapping other puppets and crazy other stuff. And it just seems stupid to him. And he really hated it. He really hated it. So much so that he decided to go into television. So there's one of your clues. He decided to go into television. He created a show And that show was going to have the best production standards he could possibly bring to it. So he never, ever, ever ad-libbed. And back then, in the early days, TV was a lot of ad-libbed. I mean, a lot of ad-libs, so much so that like Soupy Sales, Kay probably remember, got in tons of trouble because he said inappropriate things, and they just ad-libbed all kinds of stuff. So he would work and work and work and work and work, and every single word on that page that was said was scripted. Every single word was scripted, and he would rewrite, revise, and revise, and revise until it was up to his standards. So completely scripted. His clothing today is in the Smithsonian. Let's see, what else do I want to go? He actually saved, let's go to this one. He actually saved public TV in 1969, before he was famous and before anybody really knew who he was. I think it was Eisenhower, if I have my years right, who had public TV funded at, I think it was 20 million, and Nixon wanted to cut it down to 9 million. And he pled in front of Senate and he goes, please keep it at 20 million. You don't understand the value of this. And so instead of doing 20 million, after that, his heartfelt pleas, they actually took it to 22 million. And so he saved public TV. Years later, he saved the VCR. So he went in front of, who was it for the VCR? Supreme Court. He went in front of the Supreme Court and he said, this is not a copyright infringement. He said, this is because we have working families and they can't watch stuff together. Don't take that away from them. Let them record stuff so that they can sit down as a family and watch stuff together. And that's why we have VCRs today. It's because this guy went in front of the Supreme Court. Yeah, super cool. He was very, very, very scheduled and dedicated in his days. He woke up at 5 o'clock every single morning. He did prayer, study, wrote, called, swam, answered his mail, all before work started. Weighed himself every single day, always weighed 143 pounds, which was a very particular number for him, and made sure they always weighed that. Let's see. Michael Keaton got his start on his show as a purple panda. George Romero.
As a what?
Purple panda. George Romero, who was the director, thank you, director of Night of the Living Dead, also got his first paying gig was on this man's show. So that later on, when George did Night of the Living Dead, he made sure he went and saw it to support his friend. Let me see where else. He had a driver who was taking him to an event. You know what? We're going to save that one for a little bit. We're going to come back to that one. He talked about nuclear war on television when nobody was talking about nuclear war on television. He has a stamp. He has a Funko Pop. He celebrates his friend's birthday, which is on Friday the 13th, every Friday the 13th. So his friend technically is like 250 years old now, because there's a lot of Friday the 13th in the year. He is famous for answering every single piece of fan mail that has ever come to him. Handwritten letters, so much so they didn't believe it. So they put out a bunch of feelers out there to say, has anyone ever written a letter to this person and not gotten something returned? Every single person like, nope, got a letter, nope, got a letter, nope, got a letter. So much so that when he was emailed, when email came along, he still wrote a letter by hand. If you met him ever, he would, way back in the day before selfies, days of just regular cameras, he would say, can we take a picture? And okay, and they would. And then you'd be, walking down the street or whatever, and a little while later he goes, can we take another picture? And he would take all these pictures and you're like, this is so weird, right? Why is this guy taking all these pictures? But a week later, you would get a complete scrapbook of every single picture with a handwritten letter saying how much I appreciated my time with you. I love that one. He had a driver that was taking him to an event, and he said, what are you doing? Like, because I'm going to be at this event in a couple hours, and what are you doing during the event? And he goes, well, I wait. And he goes, you're not waiting, you're coming inside with me. And so I brought the driver to the event, network event. And then on the way home, he sat in the front seat, chatted with the driver. And as they passed the driver's house, he said, that's actually where I live. And he said, stop. And they went to his house and he stayed there. They had a piano there and he played piano and they laughed and sang all night long. So he just really stopped to make sure that he took time with people. He couldn't be interviewed because every single time they ever sent an interviewer to his house, he would talk to them about their lives and just ask them questions about, tell me about your family and how you grew up and all this kind of stuff. So much so that when they left the interviewer would be like, it was such a great interview. But then when they went down to sit down and write something, they realized they didn't have anything to write about because the whole interview was about them. Man can't be interviewed. It's one of the most horrible, everybody says one of the most horrible people to interview ever. Let's see. Let's go back. There's a couple more I wanted to hit on. In the opening of his show, there's a street scene with a stoplight, and that stoplight is always yellow because he wanted everybody to slow down, and he wanted everybody to always know to slow down in life. All right, we think we got one. He had, let me see, I think, yep, we're getting close to the end. He had a black man on his show before Black people and white people were integrated, and he had him take his shoes off and put his feet in the pool because there was still a whole big, huge stigma about pool. So that was this huge groundbreaking thing. The importance of 143 was the word I is one letter, love is 4 letters, and you is 3 letters. And that's why he always wanted to weigh 143 because of the phrase, I love you. And his show was called Neighborhood because his life motto was to love your neighbor as yourself. So who is this man?
Mr. Rogers.
Bam! There you go. Okay.
At one point, I thought of his name, thought of his face, but I couldn't think of his name.
Mr. Rogers. Everybody said, is he really as kind as he pretends to be or whatever? And everyone said he really, really is. They only know of one time he got mad, and that was because he was parodied by Burger King. Burger King parodied him to sell children's hamburgers. And he was like, no, do not use my likeness to sell. But he was not upset with Eddie Murphy and Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. He actually went to Eddie Murphy's, when Eddie Murphy was on Saturday Night Live, he went there, he knocked on his dressing room door. Eddie opened the door, there's Mr. Rogers. And he said, I really like what you do. It's very funny. You keep on doing it. And that was it. Said goodbye and left. So he didn't mind. He also didn't mind because it was late at night. Kids weren't going to see that. But he did not want his likeness sold to sell things to kids. That upset him. So, but that's really the only thing that anybody could ever point to actually being something that upset him. So.
He was also a Presbyterian minister.
Yes, he was. And he wanted, you're right, and he wanted to use TV as a ministry, and he knew he couldn't. And so he just made sure that he always was patient and loving and kind, and to really show people their love. And I heard this one guy say, the biggest insult you could ever do if someone's really rude to you is say, you were not acting like Mr. Rogers knows you could. I'm like, I know. I was like, ugh. So, all right. Any thoughts on Mr. Rogers and my story that I just told you?
He has some amazing follow-up and client engagement.
Yeah, huge. You know those memes that are like, I want someone to look at me like my dog looks at a Cheeto or whatever. I want someone to look at me the way Mr. Rogers looked at everybody, right? Because he just did this. He just did this. Anybody
He was
else?
really, really present.
Yeah, he was really, really present. He really was. Anybody else get anything out of that? And I'll share mine.
His energy.
Yeah.
Like he always had a calm energy.
So calm. He didn't care about dead air. And they were supposed to be filming the sound of fish eating because they make a sound, but the fish wouldn't eat. And he just patiently waited. And then later they said, we should cut that out. And he said, no, people need to know that sometimes stuff doesn't work the way you want it to work.
Hmm.
And just left it. Do you know that he always announced when he was feeding his fish? Do you know why?
Because there was a young lady that was blind and she wanted to know and she wrote into him. And so from that point on, he always announced.
She was afraid because he announced it one day. Exactly, Brie. He said one day, I'm feeding my fish. And the next day he didn't. And she was like, oh, the fish aren't getting fed. And then that was it. Every single day he's like, I'm feeding the fish now. He changed into tennis shoes because they were quieter. And that's why he did that on set. They didn't squeak. So he wore his tennis shoes. His sweaters, his little zip up cardigan thingies, those were made by his mom. And when his mom passed away, the sweaters were getting kind of ratty. And so they struggled to find other sweaters and they couldn't. And finally they saw a US postal worker wearing a sweater. And they were like, where'd you get that? They sourced it out, bought a bunch of white ones and dyed them. And that's how they did the sweaters. But it's a sweater that's in the Smithsonian. I think it's a red one that's in the Smithsonian. Here's the part that I got from me. He had a friend named Jim in the hospital. Remember that part in high school, the high school football kid who said, I like you just the way you are. And he believed in him. And that changed everything for him. That was it. That was the beginning because somebody else believed in him and he wasn't bullied anymore because he started to get some confidence around who he was.
Well, it just goes to show if you don't know about people and what they're like, it could be totally different than what you think.
Exactly. Oh, Kathy, you got it. You got the main point of today. Yes. Remember how yesterday we were talking about everybody has something inside them?
Mhm.
Everybody has something inside of them. We all do. We're all Fat Freddy on. My son, who was a chunky kid, right? He's a big, huge, husky, chunky, big, tall, chunky, husky kid. He was a year to a year and a half younger than anybody else in his grade. And he was a full head taller. And I don't even know how much heavier. He was just big, right? And now he's just tall and broad shouldered and all that. And he's got big legs. So, but anyway, but he tells people all the time, it's like, I was a fat kid. He's like, bury that pizza, get out of my way, man. But he took this thing that he felt and he just changed it completely and wrote his own story around it. Yep, I was a fat kid, get the hell out of my way. I'm eating that whole pizza. And he will eat the whole pizza. Will.
As will my kids.
Yeah, exactly. Boys, how much do they eat? How much do you have? All of it.
I buy ground beef 10 pounds at a time.
Uh-huh.
I bought a 12-pound brisket.
It
And
was
that's
Um,
I'll never forget. I make lasagna in an 8.5 by 11. Yeah, 9 by 12, whatever that size. But I line it with foil so it's double tall, right? So it's a 20-pound flipping lasagna. And my son literally is like, all right, so this half is mine. And I'm just like, you can't eat that. And he can. I'm like, who can
Yeah.
do this? Anyway, he burns it off though. He mountain climbs and all that. So he just burns it off. So yeah, Kathy, you got it. You got the whole point of the whole thing. We all have stuff inside of us that took us down or makes us feel weird or insecure or whatever it is. And he just turned it around and he took that message of I like you just the way you are. And that was his life message. Just like it really made me think about real estate. And one of my passions about real estate, because y'all know I did short sales and I did those on purpose, I think, because when I was divorced and I didn't have anything and no clothes, no car, no job, no blah, 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 blah. And in the beginning, like I couldn't get any help, like nobody would help me. And that's terrifying. I mean, it's literally terrifying. And I never wanted somebody to be in a position. I never want somebody to be in a position where they need some sort of help and nobody will help them. That's just, and so I wanted to make people who were in short sales, and which is probably, as I think about it, there was a couple of people that I was just like, we're not a good fit, I'm not going to help you. Like there was a girl who had 3 Hummers and was going through a short sale and she was short selling all of her stuff, but she was living this great grand life and wasn't changing any of it. And I'm like, I really have no interest in helping you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't see any change in anything. You're just looking at this as a free ticket out of here. I'm like, eh. But the people with, and it's judgy on my part, and it is, and I'll fully admit it. But the people that were my favorite clients that I helped were the woman that was dying of cancer, the man who was losing everything, and just all those people that didn't have any hope in this. You know, they tried to do it before and they couldn't get through the process, and just we came along and we're like, we're going to get you through it. And that's because, you know, nobody helped me in the beginning. People did. I mean, people did come along and help me, but how many people here are in real estate? I hear it over and over again, because my first transaction in real estate sucked. I didn't want anybody to go through that, or whatever your messages are, you know, because you all have them. So that's your good that you're going to do out in the world. You're going to take whatever that is, and you're going to take it out there. And you're going to go do that kind of good work out of that pain or that frustration or that hard thing that happened to you. I can't leave it on this note. Just chat. So help me out here.
So last
I'm
night
trying to ponder. Go ahead.
there was a new dishwasher, and none of the servers looked him in the eye or even asked him what his name was.
Oh.
And so I always introduce myself to the new
Can I hang on
people.
one second? Is dishwasher the lowest position? in the-
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. All right, go ahead.
So the servers, you know, have a thing on their shoulder. None of them. The essays, which is what I am, the server assistant. So I looked him in the eye and said, "Hey, I'm Bree. What's your name?" And his name was Jeremy. And so every time I saw him, I always made sure I said his name. Even the manager didn't say hi to him. Like, she hired him, but she just didn't acknowledge when he came by. You know, like, if you're this close to someone, you say something. And so literally, and I was doing the most horrible part of my job, which is polishing silverware. Can I tell you that whole night, I did not have to rack a single fork? Jeremy, the entire night, racked for 8 hours, every piece of silverware for me. And they were super clean. Like, I didn't have to scrub. Like, usually you're polishing, but there's food particles on it.
Mhm.
And he just did it. And every time he came by, I said, "Thank you." I do chit chat. Things like that. But nobody else in the restaurant would call him by name. Nobody else introduced himself. And all I thought was, my sons have been dishwashers. One, it's just a human thing, but two, he's somebody's son.
Yeah.
What the
Oh,
hell?
exactly. Oh my gosh. I know I've told this story before. I'll never forget when I went to Virginia, and the ownership group was kind of stuck on themselves. I mean, they just were. It was a rough ownership group to work with. And nobody knew the janitor, and I pointed out to them, because I knew the janitor. I mean, I worked late too, so, you know, obviously I knew the janitors. Talked to him, and he had properties. He was a landlord, and he had quite a few properties. And I was like, who here knows the janitor's name? And we were doing a very pointed, like, get up off your high horse at a team meeting, by the way, in front of everybody. We were doing that meeting. And, nobody knew the janitor's name. And I'm like, y'all know he's landlord? Y'all know he's got, like, I don't know, 16 properties or 8 properties, whatever it was. I have no idea. And you should have seen their eyes pop. And I was like, yeah, don't discount that crap. Y'all are fools. You know, you never know. You just don't.
No,
Nope.
I was still going
One,
through a really rough time when the neighbor was, you know, they'd gotten ill and old and things like that. They were having to sell their house. I wasn't in a position to buy anything. But I watched when people were looking at it, and I happened to be there. This guy came up, smelled, he was in bib overhauls, overweight a little, and whatever. And you get a idea in your head. Oh, great, and he bought that house cash,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just
Yeah.
paid cash for it. And he was coming from work to see it. And that's why he was the way he was.
Yeah, there was a famous story of a bunch of, back in the 70s, a bunch of hippie folk walking into a car dealership up in Washington State. And they're like, we want to see, you have any limos? And they had two of them, I think, on the lot. Somehow, I'm butchering the details of the story. And they were like, yeah, but, really? And they were like, no, we want to see them. And they're like, yeah, no. And then they, I don't know if they got the manager or not, but somehow they got somebody else involved, and they're like, we really want to see the limos. And they were the roadies from the band Heart, and they bought both the limos. And that guy did not get a deal off of it. Somebody else did. And it serves you right.
Yep.
It absolutely.
But
Yeah.
so what I got out of the story, Mr. Rogers, and always watching him, because I watched him all the time when I was young, is he was so kind. And people get nice and kind confused because it's not the same.
Mm-mm.
You can be nice to someone, but in an arrogant way.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're kind to people, you make them feel a certain type of way.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was in church, and I was over the young adult ministry.
Mm-hmm.
It was a young lady who she was a teenager. She got pregnant. And after service, I would always notice that she would be on the pew by herself, kind of like, ashamed and, head down. Her parents didn't even they just didn't interact with her.
Mm-hmm.
And I always made it a point to go over and speak to her and give her a hug.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed, I was like the only one. And my wife noticed. And she says, hey, I see that you go over and you give Gabby a hug every Sunday after church. And I said, yeah, because she just looks like she's abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one sees her.
Right.
And after she had her child, she told me how much she appreciated me, doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. People want to be seen. And I stayed in Philly, right? And I'd be walking down the street and I speak to everybody. So
That's a Southern in you. That's a Southern in you.
That's right. So if they made contact, I smiled and spoke.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend that, he was from there, it's like, damn, man, you speak to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I know, that's just how I am,
Mm-hmm.
So, but
It
yeah,
is.
it's a difference between, nice and kind.
Yeah, there's a really big difference. Mr. Rogers was also a vegan, which I didn't know.
Yep.
And when someone asked him, why are you a vegan? He would say, oh, I couldn't eat anything from mother, which makes you go, oh, and he would say, but that's my decision, and he was very much about, you do your thing. I like you the way you are. You do your thing. This is my decision. So,
Yeah.
wow. But
I think my next animal is going to be Mr. Rogers.
Oh my gosh, that is adorable. That's super cute. I think I'd get a dog called Fat Freddy. Like, I don't like Fat Freddy. Because you can just
Yeah,
a little kid, Yeah.
You got me wanting to watch the movie now.
Yeah, I've only seen one of the movies. I haven't seen the other one, but I would like to see the other one.
Yeah, the one with Tom Hanks.
I don't know which one I've seen. I forget which one I've seen. Greg could tell me, whatever. I just know I've seen one.
Yeah. Well, the newest one was with Tom Hanks.
That's the one I haven't seen.
Okay.
I saw the documentary on him. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, they've done all these studies, and the kids that watched the show, I was like not a generation. I was a year too old when it came out. So I was above Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers. So I remember them being on the little kids watching it and me just like, no, I'm like, no, that's just way below wherever I was at learning. And I didn't understand I just didn't understand what the point was as a young kid. But children that did grow up watching his show, they are calmer and more patient. Ability to problem solve is better, and they just take time. They take time to kind of work through stuff, which I found very interesting.
Mm.
Very, very interesting stat that came out of that. So
My
amazing.
daughter watched him some,
Yeah, my
and
kids watched.
I'm going to admit something.
Okay.
I thought he was creepy. I
Did you?
didn't think he was real. I thought there was something hidden about him that wasn't good, because
Mhm.
nobody is
That's
like
what
that.
everybody says. Everybody says nobody's that nice, and they tried, and they were like, he is that nice.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah.
that's really why I said you just don't really know. I knew some of the things that they said, and I figured he was somebody deep down that did something really horrible to kids. And if I ran into somebody like that, I wouldn't want my daughter by him.
So I heard somebody say, if he and Bob Ross were in a room together, the whole world would just turn to candy floss and rainbows. And I'm like, what? It's like, oh, they were just both really, really kind people. Both of them were,
Yeah.
just
And so
purely
that's pretty
kind.
amazing.
It is pretty amazing.
I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, I have to jump
Go
into my
ahead.
doctor's appointment soon, but I just wanted to say, I think what I've noticed over the years is when people are in contact with someone who is kind and truly present with them, it unnerves them because it's so unexpected. And so they don't know what to do with that, experience, that has been my experience. And I supervised college residence halls, and we used to always say, be kind, basic human respect to everybody. But when people, in my experience, are truly in a place where they are acknowledged and the person that's with them is present and is truly kind, sometimes it just, they're uncomfortable with that because they never received that before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see
Wow.
that.
Yeah, I can too. I can see somebody who really pays attention to you being unnerving if you're not used to it. And then
Yeah.
because my husband he just watched me and paid before we were dating, just paid massive, he was just like, he was zoned in on me and what I was doing. Like if I was across the room at a get together or a party, I would look up and then there was Greg across the room, right? And it was a bit unnerving on one hand. And then on the other hand, it was just really, once I got used to what it was he was doing, he was paying attention. And it was unnerving because I hadn't been paid attention to. And then it just became this huge blessing because I hadn't been paid attention to. But in the beginning, it's something that I wasn't used to at all, and now it's just nice, it's just very nice and very loving, because I always knew, even before we dated, I'm like, well, there's one good human being in the world that, I know pays attention and cares. And it was just kind of this nice, warm feeling to know there's somebody out there that loves me, even though we weren't dating or anything like that. And I didn't mean love like, unrequited kind of thing. He was just a good human being, Not to say he doesn't get pissed, because you put him behind the wheel of a car and you cut him off, he's going to get pissed at you. So anyway.
But what I've noticed too, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just had to say, I loved this and I love you guys. Have a good weekend. I need to jump off. This was awesome.
Bye, darling.
Okay.
See you, Liz.
Take care. Hope you're feeling better.
Yeah.
Bye, Liz.
All right, Mr. Craig. Yeah, PF, you
Yeah,
gotta talk more. Craig, you go first. That must be something, PF.
I was just gonna say, I've noticed that I look people in the eye when I talk, and I was just always taught, when I was a boy, my dad was always like, you look a person in the eye when you talk to him.
Absolutely.
So sometimes that makes people nervous, and especially women, because when I'm around them, I'm looking in their eye when they're talking, or
I would rather
even
have
if
that than your eyes drop tear all the time.
Yeah, I don't know.
My head's up here, honey.
Yeah, so it makes them nervous for some reason, and I don't. I'm not trying to make them nervous, you know.
Right.
Um, and then some of them, like if I'm approaching a woman in a store, just say, I always have my eye in their face,
Mm-hmm.
and because I'm gonna smile and speak.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, sometimes I get it's strange some of the responses I get sometimes, and it's just crazy to me. But I come back to that experiment you had us do
Mm-hmm.
when
You walked into the
you wanted us
store.
to, yeah, and that was funny. So I asked the lady for directions, and then I went back and went back again, and she was asked for a number, and she was like, listen, you're taking it too far, buddy. But afterwards I told her about the experiment, and we got a good laugh. So
Mhm.
yeah.
That's hilarious. All right. That you're coming in on the very tail end. But if you want, I'm gonna have Ava send you the recording so you can have it and kind of see what we talked about. Dutch is saying okay. He's quiet, but he's saying okay. There he is. All right, Dutch. You're coming in at the very, very end, but I'll have Ava send you the recording so you can grab it that way, okay? I can tell you're like wandering around so you can get it so you can talk. Because I can see you not unmuted. PF, you came in on towards the end also. Any thoughts?
No.
What?
Yes, I know I did.
Ah, okay. Dutch. We'll send you the recording, honey. It's all cool. We're literally wrapping down right now. We're grabbing thoughts. And you won't have any except for it's a beautiful Friday.
Yeah. I got it set up. That's the
Oh,
main thing.
Cool.
I
Cool.
just got it set up.
Okay, so we'll definitely see you Tuesday.
Recurring, absolutely.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
My other thing that I was reading
Mhm.
disappeared
Oh,
yesterday. Yesterday was the last one. Today was the first day I didn't have another obligation.
Nice.
I'm setting it up.
Love it. Well, welcome.
meant to
Thank
be.
you. Thank
Pardon
you.
me?
I said, sounds like it was meant to be.
Yep, exactly. So PF, I know you came in at the end. What parts did you hear?
Oh, I came in when we were trying to identify who Mr. Rogers was.
Yep. All right. Any
Yeah.
thoughts?
No, like you were saying, when I first started watching him, I was already past the age where I could have appreciated Mr. Rogers. But I was very aware of Mr. Rogers, and I did like his show. I did watch it on occasion, but I would always stop watch. I would move on to something else halfway through, because it would get too into the weeds for small kids.
Yeah.
Like the life lessons and stuff like that. And my mind at that point, as I remember, it would be I need some flashy thing. So I would switch channels.
That's what we're used to. We're used to, I mean, even my kids who did watch Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street, and that's all they were allowed to watch when they were little. Electric Company, when the reboot came out later and they were a little bit older, but even Sesame Street goes like this. You know,
Yes.
really quick and fast paced and little teeny tiny segments. And Mr. Rogers reminds me of Teletubbies for that generation, because it was slow, everything was repeated, it was very gentle, you know what I mean? It was just very, it reminds me more like 3-year-old or something like that. And I was past it too. So I didn't appreciate it either. All right. So
But I do
Too slow
love the
for me.
conversation.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
It
what?
wasn't our age. We were past it when it came out. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I admire his legacy and who he is and what he did. I was just the tiniest bit too old I mean, it was really close, but the tiniest bit too old. Yep, PF what?
No, I do love how in this conversation, you all made points on how we can implement those life lessons that he was teaching today
Yeah.
for ourselves. You know, so now I'm thinking, I wonder if there will be a way for me to kind of like rewatch some of the shows with a different now as an adult, but to look for the little nuggets that he
Mhm.
was sharing with us. But I also my computer had a glitch when
It's glitching now. too. Yeah.
was a vegan because of and I missed the whole part of the
Oh,
reason why he himself was a vegan, but he was like, "You be you."
yeah. He was a
Okay.
because he said he could never buy cake. He said he could never eat anyone who had a mom.
Ah,
I know, like, I'm like, oh man. But he was okay with you not being a vegan. He was just completely okay with that. That was your life, not his. His
Yeah.
life, he was a vegan, you know? So yeah, that was it. Yeah.
anyways, yeah, I was in and actually when I opened my mic, it was just to say goodbye to Liz.
Um,
It wasn't
Gotcha.
anything else.
well, but your voice was squeaky. And so I decided that you hadn't talked enough. And you probably
That's because I had a little bit of a frog in my throat, I guess.
Kermit, yeah, Kermit. If I had to go back and watch Mr. Rogers, and I don't think that I would, but if I did, I would have to do it on YouTube at double speed because I don't think I could take it any other way. I just don't think I could do it. Or maybe it would be really good to have on in the background while I was doing something else because he is so very calming. You know, he's just a calming, kind person. I think that I like more than anything else also was that he hand wrote all the letters to every single person, no matter what. And he actually had to set aside so much time as he got older, and it was a few hours every single day to go through everything because there was so much fan mail that was coming in. But every 5-year-old that wrote him a letter has one, and most of them saved it. That's just a beautiful thing. That's the power of a letter.
Yeah.
It's the original ASMR.
Yeah.
ASMR.
You know, that's the whole movement, the whole fad that started on YouTube or something that everybody whispers. They move slowly and they crinkle things.
Oh, that. Okay. All right. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. I'm like, ooh, what in the world am I missing here? Okay. Very cool. Anna?
It stands for something like audio.
I can't remember what.
sensory.
Yeah, I can't remember what it stands for.
It must be the audio version of popping the little bubbles. It must be like the same thing, only an audio version of, where it's just that relaxing pop bubble thing. Anna, I know you came in on the tail end, also got opinion.
I actually was one of those people that have never watched Mr. Rogers. I think I was one of the geeks that never watched anything really. I did learn English on Disney movies, Disney cartoons, but that's pretty much it. So now you've all intrigued me to go and watch him. I wonder if the recordings are on YouTube for me to put supposedly for my kids, but then be the one to watch them.
I'm sure you can find them out there somewhere. I've never tried.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Oh, okay, good, good.
Okay, cool. I'm really intrigued by his character now based off of what you were telling about him, Gina. I'm super intrigued.
Aw, that's awesome. I have a friend who learned how to speak English. He's French from Star Wars movies. And
Wow, that's so cool.
he taught himself
That's
all of
awesome.
Star Wars. He watched it over and over and over again, first in French, then in French with subtitles, then in English with French subtitles, and then English. And that's literally the process for
Wow.
him. So he knew words like lightsaber, but he couldn't say squirrel and things like that. There's no squirrels in Star Wars.
So funny.
Yep,
Yeah, I learned all kinds of squirrel stuff from Disney movies.
yep. That's
Wow.
fabulous. I love that. So, all right. Dutch, I am so glad you came here. I will get the recording. Hang on, let me make a note right now to have Ava send that to you specifically. Hang on, Ava to Dutch. We massively look forward to seeing you on Tuesday when it's just pure mastermind. And let me see, you guys, what is it that you want to put into your business after this? I want to do more handwritten letters. That's what I want to add in more. I have a ton of cards down here and I don't send out nearly enough of them. And if you think that I was addicted enough to buying them, I would also be addicted enough to sending them. So I think I'm going to put a stack here on my desk. So I'm looking at them. And when something comes up that is thank you card worthy, I think a thank you card shall be going out. So that's what I will add. And let's put a number on it. I will do at least 5 a week because that means at least once a day. And that's a nice, good start for me. So what do you guys want to build in business?
Ditto.
From-
I'm writing it yesterday and I noticed how impatient I was getting with myself because my handwriting was so scratchy. And when you said that, and in the whole conversation today, it's like I could use that as a way to intentionally communicate with my client in a relaxed way with clear handwriting, but I'm also helping myself be patient with myself. And handwritten letters will be like my tool. Thank you, Gina.
You're welcome. I love that because if I write fast, nobody can read it. It's Dr. Wright. But if I write slow, nobody can still read it, but it's pretty. So, anybody else you don't
I
have to?
try to
At
do.
least you can read it, Gina.
This is true. Anybody else? You don't have to, but is there anything that inspires you to build anything into your business?
For me, I would take your concept of writing to calling. I think I've been pretty bad about not following up with people. So I'll do calls and videos, like video drops to individual people.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, that's cool.
Nice. Very nice.
I can't do handwriting. I tried to do short sale letters, handwritten. At least the envelope, the return address. Oh my God. I mean, the to address, I couldn't do it, guys. It was like 4 or 5 hours out of my life and I can't. Kudos to you.
I paid my mother-in-law to do it for me. really
I
did.
am actually thinking of hiring the news kids to do mine. So yeah, maybe.
Well, they've got to teach him how to do handwriting again,
Oh,
Yeah, you
tell
gotta
me
get the
about
right
it.
age.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
because
Right.
they teach them to print.
right. Yeah, my grandson can kind of read it. I'm like, well, I handwrite everything to him in writing, and I'm like, you'll figure it out eventually. Or you won't. I mean, somebody will decipher it, but whatever, kid.
Huh. I'm gonna implement a cardigan sweater.
That is perfect.
We
That
all
is-
start by putting our shoes and socks on 1 foot at a time.
1 foot at a time. That is a beautiful thing. I love it. All right. All right, y'all. I hope that you guys have an amazing weekend and be the person that Mr. Rogers knows that you can be. And that will be a good life lived. So, all right. Again, welcome, Dutch. I will see you on Tuesday and super excited to have you here. Bye, y'all.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.